Well, welcome everybody to the July 2021 Morpheus Intelligence Update. Now, for many of you, last month I spoke about something called the disruptive, the Morpheus Genius Disruptive, and I very boldly and proudly told you that if you would like to join in on the disruptive, you could just give us your email address and we would, during July, send you the invitation to actually join in. Well, that hasn't gone so well. Just for one very simple reason, actually, we're pretty much ready to go live, except we discovered that the way my website is configured, it won't allow us to go live with it. And so we're actually busy migrating it now to the new website, which we should have done in the next week or so. And then we will be getting back to you. So those of you who were interested in doing the Morpheus Genius Disruptive online as a freebie, because we wanted to do as a bit of a pilot, a bit of a test, we will be getting back to you in the next couple of weeks to actually get that going, but apologies, it hasn't happened yet. It is coming, and I'm very excited about the way it's working out, but it's not ready yet. So hopefully we will have that done in the next couple of weeks, and it's looking really good, but we just couldn't get the actual member piece sorted out, and that's why we're moving to my new website, which we're launching later this year as well. So that's just a little bit of feedback for everybody. So I trust that you will be patient with us. And if there's anybody, by the way, who didn't indicate that they wanted to do it and still would like to, please pop your email address into the chat now, and we will invite you as well to be part of the pilot program when we get the product moving in the next couple of weeks. So that was just a little bit of an update. Let's get on to today's content. So today we're talking about relational systems. How can we unlock the power of relational systems intelligence? And that's really where we are going today. And I hope this is going to be fun for you. We're going to be talking about conflict. We're going to be talking about optimal collaboration, all of these kinds of things in various relational systems. And to do that, we're going to start with the very simple issue of what is a relational system? What is a relational system? And so this is actually quite an interesting question. So a relational system is basically any relationship, the system in that relationship. We sometimes even talk about something called the third entity. It's kind of this thing of there's you, there's me, but actually the relationship in itself is unique. It's a system. And to give you an example, we find that every single relationship has a unique system. So if you think about any of your friendships, you'll immediately grasp there are no two friendships that are alike. Every friendship you've got is unique. Every team you're a member of is unique. Every family is unique because they all have their own relational system. And this is kind of pretty logical. I mean, last month we were talking about the neuroscience of your uniqueness. So if each person is unique, then each relational system is therefore unique. And so that's why when we look at this, we can really say each relationship system has its own unique identity, its own personality. And this will be true of absolutely every single relationship because every single person is unique. But you can even, I can maybe just add to this just for a moment. If you think about a scenario where there's two colleagues and they both agree that there's something that needs to be discussed with the boss. There's something that they are looking at and they really need to discuss this with the boss. And they agree on it and they've made a good decision. Then they step into the boss's office. This is now a new relational system. And one of the two chickens out, doesn't want to raise the issue anymore. And this is because there's a totally new dynamic because it's a new system. This is not just because we've added the boss, it's actually created a new system. And the system, when two people are together, is not the same system when three people are together. And I've got a few friendships where we're actually three of us who are friends, and each of us have a unique relationship with each other, and the system is unique as well when the three of us are together. And it's different from any of the individual relationships within there. So that just gives you a bit of an idea of what is a relational system. Now, one of the second characteristic of a relational system is that every member of the system is a voice of the system. Every member of the system is a voice of the system. So in other words, if we haven't heard the voices in the system, we do not know the system. And so we are looking, and this doesn't mean every single person always has to speak, because you may find somebody voices what you wanted to voice. But basically, a relational system, for it to function properly, we want to hear the voices of the system. Otherwise, we're going to be limiting or stifling what the system can do and what the system can achieve. The third characteristic of a relational system is that relational systems are naturally intelligent, generative, and creative. So I'm going to give you a little example of this because I love this. I have a friend, and she, in her marriage, she and her husband built a new house. This is probably about 15, 20 years ago. I'm not sure exactly. And they were really financially very tightly strapped once they'd built this house. And it was infuriating to her that she was always worried about the money and her husband was not. And one day, a mutual friend of theirs said to her, without telling your husband, just stop worrying about the money and let's see what happens. And within 6 months, he was totally stressed out about the money, and she didn't feel any pressure to be worried about the money anymore because he was doing it. And this is the dynamic of a relational system. Relational systems are incredibly intelligent. There is something, this unspoken thing, where if one person is carrying the burden, the other automatically just relaxes. If one person is concerned about something, the other one doesn't feel it. If one person is constantly pushing, the other person doesn't feel the need to push. If one person is constantly pulling, the other person doesn't feel the need to pull. And so these systems are really intelligent. They're generative. They will create, and especially when the information flow is good in a system, they're automatically creative. And it's to the point where you kind of go, I don't even remember exactly whose idea that was, but something has shifted because it actually is shifting based on what's going on inside of us. And so a lot of intelligence, creativity, and they're generative. Let me not trip over the words. And so that is the third characteristic of a relational system. So what else is a relational system? What else about it? Well, relationship systems also rely on roles. Now, this is not only, like in a family, the mother and the father and the daughter but it could be the black sheep in the family. It could be a role of the voice of reason, the compliant. It could be the role of the what else could we have? Maybe a role like the devil's advocate role. Okay, and so we have these roles, and everybody's playing typically multiple roles in a relational system, in a family, in a team, in the workplace, in a partnership, in a couple. In all of these places, there's constantly roles being played by the different people in the particular system. And so, but it also can come down to what we typically have more technical roles, like this is the person who's the engineer. This is the person, so it's both these sort of very informal teaming or systems roles, as well as sort of very appointed roles. This is what you're going to do in the team. This is what I'm going to do in the team. This is your role. This is my role. And so it's all of these together. And relational systems rely on these roles for their organization and for their execution of functions. And systems will fall flat if they don't have some kind of a role for the different people. And in fact, if you've got somebody in a system, in a team, who doesn't have a role, they're either going to create a role that's going to be probably disruptive, or they're going to be passive members of the system. And that's not useful. And so that's the fourth characteristic. Let's look at the fifth characteristic, and it's this. Relationship systems are in a constant state of emergence and change, in a constant state of emergence and change. So what is that about? It's basically saying that as more information is disclosed about a relational system, the more that system's dynamic will kick in, and you'll get a lot more change. It'll emerge, it'll be moving forward. They're never completely static. They could, I guess, even be moving backwards. But there's a constant state of change, and we need to embrace that when we look at relational systems. So let's move on now to the next question, which is why? Why do we need relational systems intelligence? And so what is relational systems intelligence? It's basically the intelligence to work with the system, to work with that third entity that is the relationship system that we are actually referring to here. And so I've got two main reasons that I'm going to be discussing. And the first is, and I've discussed this on many occasions in the past, we are wired to connect. We really are wired to connect. So if we don't have great skills in managing the relationship system skills, relationship systems intelligence, then we're not going to be able to exploit the advantage of being so wired to connect. And so the more skilled we are, the better we're going to handle that incredible power that exists in our relationships, in our connections with each other. So you know, the brain. It's very clear that the brain doesn't function properly without connection, and relational systems intelligence will help us to connect better. The next reason is that we need productive conflict in our lives. We need productive conflict in our lives. And so the whole thing with productive conflict is that we want to be able to boost our productivity. We want to be able to deal with this, and I'm going to show you a little bit more detail in a little couple of slides time on exactly what I mean by productive conflict. But basically, it's productive conflict is where we are reliant, and we're pushing towards having conflict that is to the benefit of the system, not conflict that is to the detriment of the system. And that's really what we're going to be talking about in a little moment. And so let's move on to who is this for? And the who is it for is anyone who wants their relationships, their family, their teams to thrive. Okay, so who is this for? It's for anyone who wants their relationships, their family, or teams to thrive. And so that is my first point there. And the second point is it's anyone who wants to fulfill their potential. Because we are wired to connect, we're not going to be able to fulfill our potential without a level of relational systems intelligence. So this leads us to the poll. I think Cindy might have jumped the gun on the poll a little bit. So let's have a look here. So the first poll is this. Which of these interest you the most? Getting your business or team relationship to thrive, that would be number one. Number two, getting your personal or family relationships to thrive, that would be number two. And number three is getting yourself to thrive in fulfilling your own potential. So let's have a look and see with these options. So, wow, I'm seeing a whole bunch of threes here. That's really interesting. There are some twos as well. Sorry that I'm squinting. The lighting over here was reflecting on my glasses, so I'm going without my glasses here today. Okay, so Michael says number 1, 2, and 3. Robert says 3. Ryan says 2. 1, 2, and 3 for Candace. Hi, Candace. Eugene says 3. Good to see you here, Eugene. Floyd says all of the above. Thank you, Floyd. Lovely to have you along, by the way. Roy says 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of 3s, a couple of 1s and 2s, and a lot of 1, 2, and 3, all of the above. Excellent, excellent. So if we, with the vast number of 3s that we've just seen, I want to, I didn't actually change the slide for the poll, so let me just have that up there. So thank you for your contributions to the poll. But with so many people being interested in number 3, I want to just share with you something very, very briefly, and that is that we are holding the 2021 Who Am I Bootcamp exactly 1 month from today. So it's the 27th to the 29th of August. So it's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'll just tell you a little bit about it briefly. Day 1 is connection with self and others. So we're going to be focusing on connection on day 1. And by the way, we have booked the Connection restaurant for day one, which is really, really such an interesting thing that the venue we've got has got a restaurant called Connection. And that I'd already determined the agenda before I found that out. So day one is Connection. That's from the Friday afternoon. On the Saturday, freedom. Freedom to be me is the theme of who am I as we discover more and more of who we are at. And then finally, impact empowerment. So we're all about empowering impact on day 3 on the Sunday. So it runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if you would like to receive an invitation, no obligations, but if you'd like to receive an invitation, please give me your name and your email address, and I will send you a personal invitation telling you a little bit more detail about it. So that's what's happening 1 month from today, the Who Am I Bootcamp, and I hope that some of you are interested, and let's see how this actually goes. And we've got a limited space, 10 people only, and we are really looking forward to seeing some of you there, and looking forward to enjoying the time together. I'm really excited about what we're doing there, and we've got all sorts of wonderful things lined up for that weekend. Now, back to relational systems. So that was just really a little sidestep because we've been talking about anyone who wants to fulfill their potential, and the Who Am I Bootcamp is another way of doing that. Okay, now let's move on to why or why now? When or why now? So as you probably know, when I do these things, I do what and why and who, and now we're getting on to the when. And the when is a why now. And there are so many reasons for us needing relational systems intelligence, but the first one is this. We live in a world where certainty is killing our society, where we've especially got problems, I think, with political and religious certainty, where faith has changed from something about spirituality and hope and mystery into I'm right, you're wrong, shut up. And that's where faith has gone. And the certainty is killing, political certainty. Everybody's fighting for they right and everybody else is wrong. We've lost the ability to have discourse. We've lost the ability to engage with people who disagree with us. We don't know how to do that anymore. We just kind of, well, you're wrong or you stupid and I'm clever, and and it's so funny. I've been watching the whole thing in America between the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's so interesting because they're both in some ways saying the same thing. You can't reason with a Democrat because if you could, there wouldn't be any. And the Democrats going, well, you can't reason with a Republican because if you could, there wouldn't be any. And it's just this sort of stalemate of nobody knows how to do discourse. Nobody knows how to engage and discuss. And everybody is just certain they're right and everybody else is wrong, and that's it. And so we need to learn to engage with people who disagree with us. And that's then the second reason. And the third reason is this, that getting skilled in turning dysfunctional conflict into functional conflict is what we're really looking for. Is we want to be able to, we're missing out at the moment on the benefits of what I would call productive or functional conflict, where the result of the conflict is something better for the system. It's better for each person, it's better for the system. And that's what we call functional or productive conflict. And so that's what we focus in on with this. And I think that gets really, really interesting and exciting. And so we want to do another little poll at this point. And this, before I even get into the poll, let me explain a little bit more about this idea of functional and dysfunctional conflict. And I'm going to use this little continuum over here. So imagine this dot over here is where there is no conflict whatsoever in the system. Everybody agrees, nobody disagrees. Everything that we're doing everything is taken positively, and so on. Okay, and there's no disagreement whatsoever. That is dysfunctional, believe it or not. The other extreme, where the arrow is at the other end here, that is also dysfunctional. That's what we could call war or rage, road rage, for example. That is dysfunctional conflict. But somewhere in the middle, there is a sweet spot, and that's called functional conflict. And the reason that this situation over here is dysfunctional is that we're not getting the benefit of the system. We are not hearing all the voices. We are not able to disagree. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine a scenario where there are two people in a system who disagree, and the one person is saying X and the other person is saying Y. If we can't figure out what's driving the X and the Y, we can't find the Z solution, which is not a compromise, it's a better solution that solves the concern of the person punting for X and the concern of the person punting for the Y. And so that's why zero conflict is dysfunctional, because we can't, if we can't get there, and total war is also dysfunctional, because we need to get to that place where we can find a better solution, where we can move the system forward in finding a better solution. So on that basis, let's have a bit of a poll. And so the poll now is this: which of these feel urgent and important to you personally? Is it getting beyond certainty and into curiosity? So certainty, as I mentioned, is killing things. Is it getting beyond certainty into curiosity? That's number one. Number two is getting skilled in engaging with people who disagree with us. Is that a priority for you? And finally, is getting skilled in turning dysfunctional conflict into functional positive conflict a concern for you? So which of those is it? Is it number one, number two, or number three that really draws you in at the moment? Okay. Beyond certainty and into curiosity. That's interesting. So quite a few threes, one and one only, another one. Interesting. Okay, so this is very, very interesting. So with the remaining time, thank you very much for all of your responses. With the remaining time, I'm going to take you fairly quickly through 9 of these skills. How do we leverage relational systems? How do we use relational systems intelligence? And I'm going to take you through 9. I'm going to go through it quite quickly. We will be sending a handout afterwards, so don't worry if you can't take notes on all of this. But I'm going to take you through these 9 hows of relational systems intelligence. And the first one is this: it's that everyone in the system is right, partially. Everyone in the system is right, partially. And this is such a critical thing. Even if it's just a 2% of what they're saying is true, there is something valid in every single person's issue that they are raising, everything that they're concerned about. Sometimes it might not be technically correct, but it could be emotionally correct or psychologically correct, because they're a voice of the system. So if every person in the system is a voice of the system, then we've got to be listening to the one little piece that is right. And so everybody is right partially is our number one point of how we can improve our relational systems. The second one is we need to celebrate the diversity of the system. The very richness of any system is that every person in the system is unique. And so if we're not celebrating the diversity in the system, we are not getting the benefit of that diversity. And so we really want to bring that into our systems. I'm going to keep going. The third one is we need to embrace conflict in the system. We really need to embrace conflict. Keeping the peace does not result in a high-functioning system. War also doesn't, but we want to embrace the conflict. We want to be curious in conflict. We want to find out and listen to each other. That's the way we can move it forward. The fourth one is we want to share the power in the system. Now, this doesn't mean that we now run it in some sort of a democracy where we just follow the majority rule or something like that. No, it's about sharing the power. And one of the ways we share power is we listen to everybody. One of the ways we share power is everybody has a voice. Everybody has a unique gift to offer. And we celebrate that diversity. We celebrate those voices. And that's really what we want to do. It's not about if you happen to be the manager or the team leader or the mother or the father, that it's all about stamping your fist on the table and forcing everybody. But neither is it about abdication. Absolutely not. We need appropriate power distribution. But part of power distribution is simply listening. Part of power distribution is simply allowing those voices to be heard in our systems. Now, I see I am running a little bit out of time, so I'm going to just keep going. Number 5 is communicate effectively. Now, what does that mean? Well, we could look at it from so many different perspectives, but listening, as I've already mentioned, is absolutely critical. But it's also about being candid. How can we be honest in our system? How can we be really state our point of view without the fear of being shot down? But thirdly, how can we ensure we're always curious, that we're always listening, that we're always kind of picking up, okay, I hear that. That sounds a little weird to me. Tell me more. What's going on for you? What's behind that? What's the issue that's causing you to come to that conclusion? Tell me more about that. So, curiosity and candor, we want to be balancing those. And we want to be great listeners. And we want to be clear in stating our point of view when we get there. So there, that is point number 5. Now we're going to move on. Point number 6 is that we share responsibility for the development of the system. Now, I can give you a team's example very quickly. I do a lot of team leadership training, and one of the things in a team is that we often do a survey of seeing how's the team doing. And then what I see over and over again is the team leader takes the survey and now tries to fix everything. And instead, if they just gave the survey feedback to everybody, then the system automatically responds to the information, because relational systems thrive on information. So even if you think about, let's say, a couple, and that couple, each one gets more information about what's going on in the relationship, then there is automatically a shared responsibility for the growth. Whereas if it's a blame thing, it's your fault, or whatever, then we are actually in a bit of a stalemate, because now it's reliant on one person. And so we want to share the responsibility of the development. We want to empower people to be part of the development. This can even happen in families, where there's a family issue and you bring it up over the dinner table and you put it out there and you say, what do you think? Where do you want to go with this? And then things can move dynamically. And I especially see this in business teams as well. Number 7 is embrace system change and growth. Embrace system change and growth. The reality is all great systems are in a constant state of flux, a constant state of movement forward, because the individuals within that are moving forward, and the reason for being together is moving forward. And so we want to embrace that, and we want to try and share that, and let everybody be aware that change is normal, growth is normal, and we want our system to develop. We do not want our system to stagnate. And then number 8 is seek clarity and be curious. So this is taking that communication one a little bit further and saying, rather than just jumping in against whatever view is voiced, is be curious about it, explore it, ask the right sort of questions. And that then leads us finally to number 9, which is something I've already hinted at. Share knowledge and system insights. Encourage a culture where people can say, I've noticed when we get together, this happens. Or I've noticed whenever we discuss this topic, it becomes off limits. We can't talk about that. Put that information into the system and let the system work with it. And that's really what we're aiming for. I do see that my time is up, so I'm going to switch to Q&A. And if there are any questions, please put them into the chat. And I thank you for your time. If you need to go, it is now past. You're welcome to do that. We will be distributing the recording and a handout, which I know I've rushed through a lot of stuff. We'll put that all into a nice one-pager and we'll send that off to you. So if there are any questions, put them into the chat. Or if you even would like to kind of open up your microphone, we could do that as well. I'm just going to switch back to a gallery